Spending money but getting no rewards? Time to switch.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Let me know. Am I audible? Let me know. All those viewers who can see me right now. Am I audible? Let me know. Respond, people. All those I can see 4 viewers. If you can listen, if you can hear me out clearly, let me know if I'm audible enough. Yes. Okay. Good evening, Jippy. Good evening, Nidu. Good evening, Manasa. Good evening, everyone. So you all can see the first question. Today we are going to discuss OET grammar quiz. So let's answer one by one and let's see why other answers are not right. And let's see how we can solve the questions. Okay. So the first question, yes, I'm audible and clearly visible. Great. Okay. All right. Nice to know. Good evening, Ramya. Good evening. Good evening, all of you. Yes. So, people, look at the first question. Look at the first question. I'm writing to dash you to dash a nurse for Mrs. Peterson who dash assistance in personal care. So, I'm writing to, obviously, after to, we always use first form of the verb, right? After to, we always use first form of the verb. So, I am writing to request you. Okay, I'm writing to request you. First form of the verb and it should be plural form. I'm writing to request, right? In view of the above, it would be appreciated if you could monitor. Same way, like in recommendation paragraph, after could would should we use first form of the verb? Same way after to also, right? I'm writing to refer, I'm writing to request, I'm writing to transfer, I'm writing to discharge, I'm writing to update, I'm writing to inform, right? I'm writing to introduce. We always use first form of the verb, so same here we have to use first form of the verb. I'm writing to request you to send a nurse. Again, after to we have to use first form of the verb. First form of the verb is SEND, second form of the verb is SENT, and third form of the verb is SENT. Okay, so I'm writing to request you to send a nurse for Mrs. Peter who, what is who is a relative pronoun and who requires assistance, okay, who requires assistance in personal care. So what topic are we applying here? What part of grammar are we applying here? We are applying here subject verb agreement. So what is subject verb agreement, people? What is subject verb agreement? Do you remember? Any vague ideas? Right, if you do not remember it clearly, So what was subject verb agreement? What is subject verb agreement? Subject verb agreement is when subject is singular, verb is singular, and when verb is singular, we add s to the verb, right? When subject is singular, verb is singular. When verb is singular, we add s to the verb. Same way, when subject is plural, verb is plural. When verb is plural, we do not add s to the verb. Here, Mrs. Peter is singular, so you will write requires. Okay, why are we adding s with require? Because Mrs. Peter is singular. First question is clear to each one of you. Question number 1 is clear to everyone. All the 3 options are clear to each one of you. Let me know. Right. Yes, all the 3 concepts are clear. All the 3 topics. Writing to request, first form of the verb, to send, first form of the verb, and applying subject verb agreement. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. On assessment. Okay, so on assessment, on examination, on evaluation, we always use preposition on. You already know it. On assessment, comma, people please be very particular about punctuation. On assessment, on evaluation, on examination, we always put comma after this. Okay, so on assessment, comma, she dash in good condition, dash she still walks with support. So she is in good condition, she still walks with support are 2 different statements. We could connect it, but the question is, we should connect it with a supporting connector or we should connect it with an opposing connector. As you can see, she dash in good condition, which says that the statement is positive. She still walks with support is contradictory to she is in good condition, because if she is in good condition, why does she need support? Right? If she is in good condition, why does she need support? So this is a contradictory statement. And she still walks with support is a clear picture that currently she still walks with support, which means the the compound statement, the other statement with which you are connecting should be in present tense. Right? Can you say she was in good condition, she still walks with support? If she was in good condition, why you're talking about now? Right? Why does she still walks with support right now? Okay, so was is obviously a wrong answer. She is in good condition, but although cannot come in center. That's the point. Okay, although cannot come in center because although is always a starter. Okay, although is always a starter. So if you are planning to keep a connector in between the 2 statement, you should better go with however, or I should have provided you the option but. लेकिन मैंने बट ऑप्शन प्रोवाइड आपको नहीं किया है. राइट? सो ऑन असेसमेंट शी इज इन गुड कंडीशन, semicolon, however, comma, she still walks with support. Question number 2, contradictory connector. Is it clear, everyone? Question number 2 is on contradictory connector. Is it clear to each one of you? Right? So since we are talking about connectors, how many types of opposing connectors do we use in our letter writing? In our letter writing, what all opposing connectors are we using? In our letter writing, what all opposing connectors are we using? We are using although, we are using however, and we are using but. Right? Although, however, and but. These are the 3 opposing connectors that we are using in our letter writing. Right? Right. So although, right, although, but, and however. However and comma but both can be used. I have not given you the option but, so obviously but cannot be the answer. So she is in good condition, lekin tab bhi she still walks with support. No, we do not use moreover. We do not use moreover. Right? Question number 1 and question number 2 is clear. And what about what other properties do although have? Although is always followed by a positive statement. Okay? Although is always followed by a positive statement, that is although plus positive statement and then comma. So if I have to expand the statement with the help of although, how that statement should be expanded then? अगर मुझे although से expand करते हुए लिखना है, then how should I expand? Same statement. She is in good condition, she still walks with support. How will you expand it with the help of although? She is in good condition, she still walks with support. How will you expand this statement with the help of although? Come on. Type your answers in the chat box, people. Type your answers in the chat box. Although she is in good condition, comma, she still walks with support. Exactly. So see what the examiner would check, that you start the statement with although. When you start the statement with although, the statement should be positive and you should put comma, right? So question number 1 and question number 2 is clear to each one of you. All right, let's move on to the next question. Mrs. Peter dash on 19/09/2009. So I have told you numerous times that in letter writing, when you talk about admission, right, and specifically when you talk about dates, in front of specific dates you should always use preposition on. Okay, in front of specific dates you should always use preposition on. So on 19/09/2009. If it was simply a year, okay, dash 2009, we would have written in 2009, dash January, in January. But if you have a specific date provided, so you will always use preposition on, that is on 19/09/2009. Okay, so Mrs. Peter dash on 19/09/2009 following an injury to the spinal cord. So many people have confusion regarding this following also. So what happened first when you say Mrs. Peter was admitted on 19/09/2009 following an injury to the spinal cord? That means she had an injury to the spinal cord. Okay, this lady had an injury to the spinal cord due to which she was admitted in the facility, right? What tense is Mrs. Peter was admitted? Why do we write in simple past passive voice? Why do we write in simple past passive voice? We write it in simple past passive voice because admission, discharge, right, any kind of management that is provided to the patient, any kind of encouragement or motivation or any starting of a drug or any therapy or any kind of management, the patient cannot do for himself or herself. It is done by somebody else for the patient, right? So something which is done by somebody else for the patient, that is admission. It is done by the doctor. Discharge is done by the doctor. But we never write in our letter that the doctor discharged Mrs. Peter. We never write the doctor admitted Mrs. Peter. Instead, we give importance to the patient who was admitted. Instead, we give importance to the patient who was discharged. Instead, we give importance to the patient who was advised, who was encouraged, who was motivated, who was commenced on, who was initiated with, right? So it is better whatever you talk in terms of patient which was given to the patient during hospitalization, that can be anything, is always written in passive voice. Here, was admitted is what tense, what voice? Was admitted is simple past passive voice. Okay, was admitted is simple past passive voice. What is the active voice of simple past? What is the active voice of simple past? Subject plus V2, that is second form of the verb, plus object is the active voice of simple past. Where do you use simple past in our letter writing? All those places where the action started in the past, completed in the past, having no connection with the present, we use simple past. All those places where the action started in the past, completed in the past, having no connection with the present, we use simple past. When the patient undergoes any surgery, the patient underwent surgery, or the patient underwent tonsillectomy, the patient underwent appendectomy, these all are procedures which completed in the past, having no connection with the present. There you use simple past. Admission date which is past as compared to the date of the letter is simple past. Discharge date where the patient has been discharged before the date of the letter, that is today is 22 March, and if the patient is discharged 1 week before. Why 1 week before? Yesterday. So any action that took place yesterday, simple past. Mrs. Peter was discharged. Here Mrs. Peter was admitted on 19/09/2009 following injury, means due to an injury to the spinal cord. Question number 3 is clear to each one of you. Question number 3 is clear to each one of you. Let me know. Yeah, many people have answered the structure also. Very good. Very nice. Amazing. You still remember the structure? Very nice. Very good. Question number 3 is clear from every aspect. Question number 3 is clear from every aspect. Very good. Let's move on to question number 4. Mrs. Peter dash pain and intense stinging sensation. Mrs. Peter dash pain and intense stinging sensation. Who experienced this? The patient herself. right? As I told you before, admission done by somebody else, discharge done by somebody else, advice done by somebody else, motivation done by somebody else, right? Any kind of management started by somebody else for the patient. But here, this is a suffering, right? But we are not supposed to use the word suffering in our letter. Having said that, this is an experience which was experienced by the patient herself. We cannot say Mrs. Peter was experienced. Can you say Mrs. Peter was experienced? No, absolutely wrong. Still, many students have the tendency to write this kind of statement. Please, people, try to understand. The patient herself experienced pain. The patient herself went through this excruciating pain and intense stinging sensation. So, Mrs. Peter experienced pain and intense stinging sensation. Have you understood? These are the two subjects which were experienced by the patient herself. So, you should not convert it in passive voice. So Mrs. Peter experienced pain and intense stinging sensation is what tense? It is simple past active voice. How? What is the structure of simple past? Many students wrote just now that simple past is subject plus V2 plus object. So subject Mrs. Peter, experienced V2. No need to convert it in passive voice. Clear everyone? Question number 3 and 4 both are related to simple past tense. Question number 3 is expanded in simple past passive voice, and question number 4 is expanded in simple past active voice. Exactly, right, Shani, right. Clear everyone? Question number 1, 2, 3, 4 with all the options. Why option number so, why it is correct, what is the reason behind it, the grammatical justification behind it. Is it clear to each one of you? Let me know. Clear, Anna? Great. Let's move on to the next question then. Let's move on to the next question. All right. Mrs. Peter dash with high blood pressure dash 1992. Mrs. Peter dash with high blood pressure dash 1992. Since I have given you with, obviously you cannot use has had now, right? So see, has had is also right option if I wouldn't have given you this option. So Mrs. Peter has been diagnosed with high blood pressure since 1992, right? Or the other answer would have been Mrs. Peter has had high blood pressure since 1992. Right? So why have we used has had? That's my first question. We use has had or we use has been diagnosed, that is present perfect, with all those diagnoses which talks about lifestyle diseases like high blood pressure, right? That is blood pressure, about diabetes, right? So anything that has been diagnosed once and will remain throughout, right? That means has continued up till now. You expand it with present perfect tense. Right? We have to expand it in present perfect tense. So Mrs. Peter has had high blood pressure since 1992, or you will say Mrs. Peter has been diagnosed with high blood pressure since 92. Now, the other two prepositions that I'm talking about is since and for. People, since is used with point of time. For is used with duration of time. Okay, since with point of time and for is used with duration of time. Since 1992, since 2004, since 2008, since January, since March, since morning, right? For is used with duration of time. For 30 weeks, for 30 months, for 30 days, for 30 hours, for 30 days, 30 minutes, right? So with duration of time, we always use for. But if this time indication was not given and it is still a lifestyle disease and time indication is not given, then this statement should have been represented in simple present tense, right? If time indication was not given, then this statement would have been the basic fact about the patient, and so it should have been expanded it in simple present tense only. That is, Mrs. Peter has hypertension. Mrs. Peter has diabetes. Is it clear, everyone? Have you understood when is the need of expanding a statement in present perfect tense? And the application of since and for. The application of since and for is clear to each one of you? Clear, everyone? All right. Okay. Next question. Dash he ambulates with a cane or rolling walker independently, comma, he needs supervision or contact guard on the stairs. So see again, if I have given you blank in the beginning, that means you're talking about a starter. And you can see the two statements are contradictory. Like the two statements are opposing to each other. Right? So although he ambulates with a cane or rolling walker independently. So is it being justified if we use although? Of course it is, because he ambulates with a cane or rolling walker independently is a positive statement. The patient is able to mobilize with a cane or rolling walker independently is a positive statement. So although can be used. Provided, make sure that I have put a comma after the positive statement. Yes, we have done that. So although he ambulates with a cane or rolling walker independently, comma, he needs supervision or contact guard on the stairs. So first of all, is it contradictory? Are they opposing to each other? Are they? Yes, they are. How? See, he ambulates with a cane or rolling walker independently. If he is able to ambulate with a cane or rolling walker independently, why does he need supervision? Right? He should need supervision if he is not able to walk independently. Isn't it? Do you get my point? If he is able to ambulate with a cane or rolling walker independently, he should not have been provided supervision. Instead, they say that though he is walking independently, tab bhi ise supervision ki zarurat hai. That means second statement is opposing the first statement, which means you should use opposing connector. Right? If you were to expand the very same statement with other two connectors that we have learned in the previous question, we would have used it with the help of however and but. But when we expand the statement with however and but, we have to be careful that we do not use however and but as a starter. They always come in center. They connect two statements. Right? That means the statement then would have been Mr. X ambulates with a cane or rolling walker independently, semicolon, however, comma, he needs supervision or contact guard on the stairs. Right? This is with however. If it was with but, then you will say Mr. X ambulates with a cane or rolling walker independently, comma, but he needs supervision or contact guard on the stairs. Is it clear, everyone? Question number 6. Connectors. Right answer. Very good, GB. Absolutely. It is with a positive statement followed by a comma and then a negative statement. Exactly. Absolutely right. Yes, people. Clear up till there? Clear up till there? Any confusions? Clear up till there? Yes. Okay, let's move on to the next question then. Let's move on to the next question. Okay. Dash 12/08/2010. I have already told you numerous times. All those students who are still attending the class, who have already attended the class, we know that we always use preposition on. We use in. I think I have already repeated it, a few minutes before. In is used with unspecified time. Like 2010, though the year is specific, but which month are you talking about? Which date are you talking about? Which particular month and date of this particular year are you talking about is not clear. So in that case, in 2010. Right? Dash October, which day of October are you talking about is not clear. So in October, in December, in January. But when you specifically provide the date, 12 August 2010. So this is a very specific date with the month, with the year. Right? So there you will always use preposition on, and always keep it in mind whenever you start your body paragraph with the date, you're supposed to put comma after that. On 12/08/2010, comma. But at the same time, if you write this date in center, that is Mr. Taylor was admitted on 12/8/2010, now will you put comma? No. That is what the difference is, and that is exactly what you need to understand. When you start the statement with the date, you need to put comma. There, comma is mandatory. But when you start the statement with the subject followed by the date, there you are not supposed to put comma. So what are the two correct statements? I'm asking about the two correct statements. The first correct statement is the very same statement. On 12/08/2010, comma. This is correct statement. Mr. Taylor was admitted on 12/8/2010 following. That is also a correct statement because I have not put any punctuation. Please keep that in mind. Okay. On 12/08/2010, comma, Mr. Taylor dash with the dash of left knee joint pain and swelling. So he presented with the complaints, right? Who presented? The patient presented himself. Was he presented by somebody else? Please, people, do not even think of that kind of statement. Nobody presents other person, right? Either Mr. Taylor, if it is given in the task, Mr. Taylor was accompanied with his wife. If the task says, okay, Mr. Taylor was accompanied with his wife, you can say Mr. Taylor along with his wife presented that, you can say. But Mr. Taylor was presented, people, please do not use that. Okay, don't not use that at all. So Mr. Taylor presented, he himself presented with the complaints of left knee joint pain and swelling. What is it? You should use a noun or a verb. We should use noun. Okay, because what are the complaints? The complaints are left knee joint pain and swelling. These are his complaints. Okay, these are not the actions. Okay, if it was on 12/08/2010, Mr. Taylor complained of, if the statement was like this, on 12/08/2010, comma, Mr. Taylor complained of left knee joint pain and swelling, then the spelling would have been COMPLAINED. Here it is the other way around. We are not talking about his action. Instead, we are talking about what he said, right? So he has put up his complaints, and his complaints are left knee joint pain and swelling. So the spelling should be COMPLAINTS. So what should be the answer? On 12/8/2010, Mr. Taylor presented with the complaints of. So which one should be the answer? Option A, B, C, D. Option number D, right? Option number D. Very good, people. Clear up till there? Let's move on to the next question. Today, comma, he revisited. People, revisited is non-hyphenated, okay? It is not hyphenated, revisited, okay? So today, comma, he revisited. Should I say he was revisited? No, the patient himself revisited. So today, comma, he revisited with his investigation report. So today, who revisited? The patient himself revisited. So today, comma, he revisited with his investigation report, which, see what is which? Which is a relative pronoun, okay? What is which? Which is a relative pronoun. And what is it talking about? Relative pronoun is a word that is talking about the word exactly which is before that. So what is before which? Before which is investigation report. That means you are talking about investigation report. Understood? So today, comma, he reported with his investigation report which dash his diagnosis. आज पेशेंट अपने इन्वेस्टिगेशन रिपोर्ट के साथ प्रेजेंट हुआ जिसने डायग्नोसिस को कंफर्म किया. अपन that means what confirmed the diagnosis? Investigation report confirmed the diagnosis. इन्वेस्टिगेशन रिपोर्ट ने डायग्नोसिस को कंफर्म किया. दैट मीन्स इट शुड बी सिंपल पास्ट active voice. If you wish to write in passive voice, today he revisited with his investigation report, right? His diagnosis was confirmed, or you can say today his diagnosis was confirmed in his investigation report. उनका डायग्नोसिस इस इन्वेस्टिगेशन रिपोर्ट में कंफर्म कराया गया. दैट मीन्स इट वाज कंफर्म बाय समबडी एल्स. बट इफ यू गिव इंपॉर्टेंस टू द सब्जेक्ट हियर, देन यू हैव टू राइट इट इन एक्टिव वॉइस. दैट इज टुडे he revisited with his investigation report which confirmed his diagnosis. Today, comma, his diagnosis was confirmed in his investigation report. So both the answers are right if you use accordingly. Right? Was confirmed is right when you structure the statement in another way, and confirmed is right when you prioritize the statement in another way. I hope it is clear. Both the statements are correct as per you. What to say? I'm not getting the word. As per you frame the sentence. Have you understood, everyone? So for this question, question number B is correct, not A. Clear, everyone? Have you understood? Right. Okay. Right. Let's move on to the next question. Yes. Oh, Lisha came. All right. Okay. All right, everyone. Let's move on to the next question. Yes, Shani. Okay, Komal. Perfect. Perfect. So let's move on to the next question. Let's move on to the next question. Mr. Vanav dash in the facility dash 6 weeks. Okay, and I've given you two options. Has been, since, has been, for. Just few questions before I already gave you the explanation that 6 weeks is duration of time. So with duration of time, we always use for, right? With duration of time, we always use for. So for is the right answer. So obviously has been should be the right answer along with it. Or I gave you, yeah, has been I've already given you as the option. So that means the selecting part was, the criteria was between since and for. So Mr. Vanav has been in the facility for 6 weeks. So when you use such kind of statement in your letter, what all are the conclusions that you can draw? Mr. Vanav dash in the facility for 6 weeks. Is he there in your facility right now? When you say has been in the facility for 6 weeks, is he there in the facility right now when you are writing this letter? When you write this kind of statement, he has been in the facility for 6 weeks. Yes, he has been here up till today, right? And that stay started 6 weeks before. Understood? That stay started 6 weeks before, but that stay has continued up till when? Has continued up till today. Have you understood? That stay started 6 weeks before and that has continued up till today. Clear? So Mr. Vanav has been in the facility for 6 weeks. Clear, Ale? Right? Clear? Right. All right. Okay. Nice. Mr. Vanav dash to receive care from female staff. Mr. Vanav dash to receive care from female staff. Mr. Vanav was refused. Mr. Vanav refused. Mr. Vanav has been refused. So first of all, please try to understand. Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice of you, Shrikant. I hope the session is beneficial, right? From Karnataka. Happy to see new students. Happy to see. Absolutely happy to see new students. Right? Okay. Yes. All right. So the patient himself refused. The patient himself refused to receive care from female staff. Do we have to use passive voice? Mr. Vanav was refused? No need. The patient himself refused to receive care from female staff. So this is what tense? This is simple past. Active voice. He himself refused. Exactly, Komal. Right? So Mr. Vanav refused. Subject plus V2. Simple past active voice. First question, that is 9th question, has been in the facility for 6 weeks. Why has been? Because that stay started 6 weeks before and has completed up till now. That stay has continued up till now. 10th question, simple past active voice, because it is a completed action and the patient himself refused to receive care from female staff. So it is simple past active voice. 9th and 10th question is clear to each one of you. Let's move on to the next question. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Yes. 1 week later, एक हफ्ते के बाद, after 1 week, okay. 1 week later, comma, Mr. X dash socially withdrawn. That means you are still writing this letter after this period, okay. You're still writing, maybe this line has taken from any letter, but we can conclude one thing, that 1 week later, एक हफ्ते के बाद, Mr. X dash socially withdrawn. That means you are writing this letter after this week. Okay, this 1 week later is not going to come anytime in the future. The incident already took place. Okay, so Mr. X dash socially withdrawn. Mr. X socially withdrawn hai. This was found by somebody else. Right? So Mr. X found socially withdrawn? No. Mr. X was found socially withdrawn. That means Mr. X is socially withdrawn and that was found by somebody else after 1 week. Clear? So 1 week later, Mr. X was found socially withdrawn means that basically Mr. X is aloof. He is socially withdrawn and that was found by somebody else. Clear? So here it is what tense and what voice it is. It is simple past, passive voice. Clear? Let's move on to question number 12. Mr. X dash at his fellow residents and avoided weekly sing along. So Mr. X shouted at his fellow residents, was shouted at his fellow residents, shouts at his fellow residents, has been shouted at his fellow residents. So see, first of all, Mr. X was shouted at his fellow resident and Mr. X shouted at his fellow residents. What is the difference? Mr. X shouted at his fellow residents and Mr. X was shouted at his fellow residents. What is the difference? What is the difference, people? When you say Mr. X shouted at his fellow residents, who shouted? Who shouted when I ask you Mr. X shouted at his fellow residents? Which means who shouted? Mr. X shouted. Mr. X ने shout किया किस पर? On whom did he shout? On whom did he shout? At his fellow residents. But when you say Mr. X was shouted at, okay, when you say Mr. X was shouted at, and if I complete the statement like Mr. X was shouted at by his fellow residents, that means in this case who shouted? In this case who shouted? In this case the fellow residents shouted. On whom? On Mr. X. Have you understood? Is it clear, everyone? Right? So please try to understand the difference, because that difference gives you the clarity when to use active voice and when to use passive voice. Clear? So when you say Mr. X shouted at fellow resident, when you ask the question who, the answer is Mr. X. Mr. X shouted at his fellow residents. Same way when you say fellow residents shouted at Mr. X, that means fellow residents shouted. Now when you convert to its passive voice, Mr. X was shouted at by his fellow residents means fellow residents shouted at him. Clear? So here the person who shouted is Mr. X, not the resident. Okay, so Mr. X shouted at his fellow residents, and who avoided weekly sing along? The reader himself, that is Mr. X. Clear, people? All the questions clear? So it was a set of 12 questions where I have tried to cover all the grammatical topics, all the grammar ingredients which can be helpful in your letter writing. I hope you have understood all the 12 questions. So we started with subject verb agreement, people, right? So I just want to tell you some notes about it. People, subject verb agreement is very important topic, which says if subject is singular, verb is singular, add s to the verb. If subject is plural, verb is plural, do not add s to the verb. Come on, people, repeat after me. When subject is singular, verb is singular, add s to the verb. When subject is plural, verb is plural, do not add s to the verb. Why do we say I'm writing to refer Mr. X who requires? Why are we adding s with require? Because Mr. X is singular. I'm writing to refer Mr. X and his wife. Now you're talking about two subjects. Two subjects means plural subject. Plural subject means plural verb. Plural verb means do not add s to the verb. Do you get that? Okay. So I'm writing to refer Mr. X who requires. We are adding s because Mr. X is singular. I'm writing to refer Mr. X and his wife who require. Why are you not adding s with require? Because subject is plural, verb will be plural. You will not add s. The patient needs daily dressing. Why are you adding s with need? Because the patient is singular. The patient needs daily dressing. Have you understood? Mr. X apostrophe S daughters. Whom are we talking about? Mr. X or the daughters? We're talking about daughters, not about X. Okay. Mr. X apostrophe is daughter. Mr. X ki betiyan. Right? Mr. X into daughters. Daughters. You're talking about more than one daughter. Mr. X apostrophe is daughters want their father or wants their father. W-A-N-T or W-A-N-T-S. What will you use? W-A-N-T or W-A-N-T-S. What will you use? You will use W-A-N-T because subject is plural. When subject is plural, verb is plural. Do not add s to the verb. The exceptions are I and you. With I and you, we always use plural form of the verb, people. I need, you need. I read, you read. I require, you require. I monitor, you monitor. Right? With I and you, we always use plural form of the verb. Otherwise, with singular subject, she needs, he needs, Mr. Middleton needs, Mr. X needs. But when it is plural, they need, we need, Mr. X and his wife need, the children need. Okay, so that is subject verb agreement. That is very, very important. right? Then we spoke about simple past tense. It is very important. It has got a wide use in our letter writing, and you should be very, very thorough about it. Let it be the definition, let it be its structure, let it be examples. Simple past statements are those statements which have no connection with the present people. All those actions which started in the past, completed in the past, having no connection with the present is called a simple past tense. Right? For example, admission, which is always past tense as compared to the date of the letter. Any kind of advice, any kind of management, any kind of starting of the drug, any kind of therapy that has been initiated for the patient in the past. He was initiated with physiotherapy. That means not now. He was commenced on paracetamol. That means somewhere before the date of the letter. Have you understood? Clear, everyone? Right? So simple past is very important. You convert to active voice, passive voice as per the need. When you say he was admitted, admission is done by somebody else, passive voice. He underwent the surgery. Who underwent the surgery? The patient himself underwent the surgery. You do not have to convert it to passive voice. So what is the structure? Subject plus V2 plus object. Subject plus V2 plus object. What is underwent? Underwent is second form of the verb, people. Undergo is first form. Underwent is second form. Undergone is third form. Right? So for all those surgical procedures, all those investigations, all those that has no connection with the present, we write it in simple past. Right, people? Yes, so that was a good session, I guess. Many students would have got at least an idea of what all kind of grammar topics we're using in our letter writing, right? So coming Friday, I'm coming live in FB, right? And we are going to discuss 25th Feb 2023 question paper. Okay, coming Friday in FB, and next Wednesday in Hindi YouTube, right, we would be discussing 25th Feb 2023 writing case note. Is it clear? Coming Friday, I'm going to discuss in FB live. Coming Wednesday, that is next Wednesday, I will discuss 25th February exam question writing case note in YouTube. So it's my humble request to each one of you to please attend that session, right, for all those students who are going to take upcoming exams. So it would be beneficial for you. So all those people have already attended, it's fine. All those who have not attended, many students were not able to attend when I discussed this task in Zoom session. So this I'm going to discuss, right, in FB, right, 25th Feb exam task will be there. Nice, Lisha. I knew you have exam the very next day, right? Saturday you have exam, I know. So I will certainly take, and I think you have already got, but yes, certainly you should be there if you have any kind of concerns and queries regarding that task. Certainly, ma'am. Exactly, GB. Yes. I need everybody's presence on that day, right? It's a very interesting case note. Not tricky, but it's all about how we read it. Right? So that is all for today, people. I hope the session was beneficial and you all will revise. Thank you, everyone. Catch you at 9 p.m. for the Zoom session. Bye-bye. Good night. Lots of love. Good night. Thank you.